The courtroom was quieter than anyone could remember. It hadn't been this still when Christine took the stand, pouring her heart out. It hadn't even hushed like this when Mary made her dramatic return. But today felt different, heavier. In the judge's hand was a sealed envelope. Garrison had mailed it 3 weeks before he passed away. It was postmarked, notarized, and addressed simply, "To the judge, who will hear the truth." You could have heard a pin drop. The judge carefully broke the old-fashioned wax seal and started reading silently at first. Then, within seconds, everything changed. Kody went as white as a sheet. Robyn's pen slipped from her fingers and clattered on the floor. Christine sat frozen, like someone had pressed pause on her. Why? Because the very first line of that letter wasn't about grief or letting go. It was a declaration. "This is my final chance to protect my mother and expose my father." You can imagine the shock rippling through that room. It didn't stop there. Garrison went on to list names, specific dollar amounts, and he mentioned another sealed letter hidden in his truck, addressed to Janelle. That second letter? It was about to turn everyone's world upside down. Garrison never meant for cameras to catch any of this. It was private, raw, and real. But now it was part of the official court record. The truth he'd carried alone was finally out in the open. I want you to think about that for a second. What would you do if your own child's last words tore apart everything you thought you knew about your family? Let me know down in the comments. I really do read them. The room started buzzing the moment word got around that the judge was going to read the letter out loud. This wasn't just some sad goodbye note. It was Garrison Brown's final statement, a legal document his own attorney had delivered with clear instructions. "Read this only when my father is under oath." Kody hadn't said a word all morning. That usual confident tilt of his chin was gone. No more quick glances over to Robyn for reassurance. He just stared straight ahead at the judge's bench, looking hollow. Christine sat stiff as a board in the second row, clutching a crumpled tissue like it was the only thing holding her together. Mary stared forward, blinking slowly, almost like she was trying to keep her feelings locked away. Janelle hadn't even come inside yet. She was out in the hallway, pacing back and forth, refusing to sit until she knew what was in that envelope. And Robyn? Poor Robyn looked the most rattled of all. Her mascara had already started running a little, and she kept twisting a soaked tissue in her lap. Every time the judge moved, she jumped. This letter was never supposed to see the light of day in public. But today it became evidence, and there was no putting that genie back in the bottle. The judge, an older gentleman with gray hair, thick glasses, and a well-known dislike for courtroom drama, held the envelope up for everyone to see. "For the record," he said in his calm, steady voice, "this letter was submitted by Mr. Garrison Brown's legal counsel. It has been witnessed, notarized, and its chain of custody verified." He paused, letting that sink in. It was written before his death and contains specific instructions. It is to be read aloud only under legal protection and only when Mr. Kody Brown is present and under this court's jurisdiction. That condition has now been met. A collective gasp rolled through the gallery. Kody actually flinched. Then the seal cracked open. The paper unfolded, and the judge began. "If you're reading this, it means my father is finally being held accountable." Christine whispered something under her breath. I couldn't catch it, but her lips were moving. Robyn buried her face in her hands. The judge kept going, his voice low but perfectly clear. "I tried. I really tried to understand. I tried to stay quiet. But when I saw the real trust documents, when I found out what he planned to do to my mom, I couldn't keep silent anymore." The whole room seemed to freeze. Nobody shuffled papers. Nobody coughed. Even the court reporter's fingers hovered over the keys for a moment. He took the family trust and rewrote it. Not for all of us, just for her kids, just for Robyn. Mary's face changed just a fraction. A slow blink, a tiny tremble in her jaw. But she stayed quiet. The judge went on. He promised us everything was equal, that each wife's children would get the same share. But I saw the papers. I saw the bank transfers. I saw the new trust. My mom gets nothing. A soft sob escaped from someone in the back row. Nobody turned to look. And it's not just about money, the judge read. It's the legacy. It's the land. It's our future. And he gave it all away. For her. No one had ever laid an accusation like that at Kody's feet. Not in public, not in court, and certainly not with paperwork to back it up. Until Garrison. The judge's hands shook ever so slightly as he turned the page. Your Honor, he read aloud. This next part is critical, Your Honor. This next part is critical. The judge read aloud, his voice carrying through that hushed room. Garrison had written, I left a second envelope locked in my truck's glove box, addressed to my mother, Janelle. If this court allows, please retrieve it. Inside is what changed everything for me. Christine leaned forward in her seat, barely breathing. He knew, she whispered almost to herself. He knew what he found would matter. The judge didn't hesitate. He sent a bailiff right away to get the truck and bring back that sealed envelope. Then he called a short recess. The second the door closed behind him, well, it was like the dam finally broke. Kody shot up out of his chair so fast it scraped across the floor. This is manipulation, he shouted. It's taken completely out of context. Christine wasn't having it. She turned on him and said, How dare you? You know exactly what you did. Mary didn't say a word, but oh boy, those eyes of hers. They were locked on Kody like they could burn right through him. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her look said plenty. Robyn gripped the edge of the table like she thought the floor might give way any second. The poor woman looked lost. The lawyers jumped in, trying to settle everyone down. But the air in that room, it had changed. Things were coming apart at the seams. Out in the hallway, Janelle stood perfectly still when the court officer walked up to her. In his hand was a thick yellow envelope with her name on it, in Garrison's own handwriting. At first, her hands didn't move. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. And for the first time that day, tears rolled down her cheeks. Janelle didn't rush back into the courtroom. She stayed right there in the hallway, holding that envelope tight with both hands, like it was the last piece of her son she had left. She leaned against the wall a little, not shaking exactly, but you could tell something inside her had shifted. The ground she'd stood on for years didn't feel so solid anymore. Back inside, the whispers were flying. The judge wasn't back yet, but nobody could stay quiet after hearing the end of that first letter. Christine sat there with her hand pressed to her chest like she was trying to keep her heart from jumping out. Mary hadn't budged an inch. She just stared at the empty chair Kody had left behind. Her silence spoke volumes. And Robyn, bless her heart, she was coming undone. Shoulders hunched, mascara streaking down her face, lips moving without any sound. She kept glancing at the doors, like she was praying someone would walk in and make this nightmare stop. But no one was coming to the rescue. The room felt thick, heavy, like something awful had already landed, and the rest was still on its way. Then the doors opened. Janelle stepped in, moving slow and deliberate. Her eyes weren't red anymore. She didn't look broken. If anything, she looked like someone who'd walked through the worst of the pain and come out ready to fight. She held up the envelope for everyone to see. The judge had just taken his seat again. He looked at her kindly and asked, "Do you consent to submitting this as evidence?" Janelle paused for a second, then answered clear and steady, "I do." The judge took the envelope, turned it over in his hands. The seal appears unbroken. The handwriting matches the previous submission. He gave a small nod. "We'll proceed." He carefully opened it, pulled out several typed pages. There was a paper clip holding a small USB drive to the first page. The judge raised an eyebrow, read silently for a moment, and then his eyes widened just a bit. "This letter contains multiple exhibits," he announced to the room. Bank account numbers, signatures, copies of files, and a transcript of a phone call. He looked up. A phone call between Kody Brown and a trust administrator dated 6 months ago. Kody jumped to his feet again. This is a violation. These are private. Sit down. The judge cut in sharply. You will not interrupt these proceedings. Kody dropped back into his chair, face flushed red. His lawyer leaned over, talking fast in his ear. But Kody just shook his head. No, he wasn't having it. The judge took a deep breath and began reading the second letter aloud. To my mom, I'm sorry I couldn't say this to you in person, but you deserve the full truth. And so does this court. Janelle blinked hard, holding it together. No tears now. I know you didn't believe me when I told you I'd seen the new trust documents on Dad's desk. But I found more. The new trust was signed the day after your anniversary dinner. Christine's head whipped toward Kody so fast you could almost hear it. Janelle whispered, just loud enough for those nearby to catch, he lied to me. He said it was just routine paperwork. The judge continued, the trust only names Robyn's children, Dayton, Brianna, Aurora, Solomon, and Ariella. That's it. No one else. Mary let out a loud, sudden gasp, her hand flying straight to her mouth. Kody couldn't even look up anymore. He just stared down at the table, silent for once. Then came the next blow. Your name has been removed from the deed of the Coyote Pass property. It's now listed under a holding company, and Robyn owns 51% of it. Christine muttered under her breath, oh my God. Garrison's letter went on, and the phone call I'm including, it proves Dad told the trust manager to move all the assets before anyone could challenge the changes. The judge glanced over at the court technician. Please play the submitted audio file. A moment later, Garrison's own voice filled the room. Calm, steady, like he was just sitting in a quiet space doing what he felt was right. This is August 11th, 2022 p.m., he said on the recording. Phone is on speaker. Recording conversation between Dad and Mr. Eldridge. Then came Kody's voice, clear as day. I want everything moved to the new trust before Mary or Christine start asking questions. You could feel the air leave the room. Mr. Eldridge's voice replied, Sir, you're already removing Janelle's rights on record. Are you sure you want to proceed without informing them? Kody answered, they'll find out eventually, but I want it done before then. Christine slammed her palm down on the bench in front of her. You absolute snake. Robyn completely fell apart. She covered her ears and rocked back and forth, whispering over and over, he didn't mean it like that. He didn't. The judge stopped the playback right there. Let the record reflect, he said firmly, that Mr. Kody Brown instructed a fiduciary to move assets in secrecy and verbally acknowledged his intent to exclude multiple legal stakeholders from estate decisions. Mary stood up slowly. Her voice shook, but she held herself tall. He told me we'd all get a fair split. That's why I didn't fight harder for the Flagstaff house. Janelle spoke up too, quiet but steady. He promised Coyote Pass would be for all our children. Christine turned toward Robyn. You knew, didn't you? Robyn couldn't answer. She just couldn't. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was serious. Legal manipulation, possible fraud, maybe even felony-level concealment of assets. And everyone in that room, especially the judge, knew it. He looked down at the final page in his hands. There's one more section, he said. A personal paragraph. The whole courtroom leaned forward. The judge read softly, Mom. I know you'll blame yourself for trusting him. Please don't. He used our love like a shield. He knew we wouldn't ask too many questions. But now it's time the court does. Then, almost like the words weighed more than everything else combined, he read the last line, and tell Christine to open the storage unit. The blue box. Christine looked like someone had just hit her with a board. What? She whispered. The judge repeated it gently. Tell Christine to open the storage unit. The blue box. Christine turned to the others, eyes wide. What blue box? Mary's voice trembled. Do you have any idea what he meant? Christine stood up slowly, pieces clicking together in her mind. Oh my God, the storage unit in Flagstaff. I still have the key. I'd honestly forgotten we even kept it. We all used to toss old things in there years ago. The judge asked quietly, "Do you know what's in the blue box?" Christine shook her head. "No," she said, her voice barely there. "But I think I'm about to find out." The room went dead silent again. Whatever was waiting in that forgotten blue box, it was Garrison's last secret. And it hadn't even been opened yet. When Christine finally did open it, well, everything was going to change. That night, Christine didn't sleep a wink. Neither did Janelle or Mary. And judging by the emergency injunction Kody's lawyer filed at 2:12 a.m., Robyn didn't get much rest either. The courtroom had cleared out after the second letter and that devastating audio. But the fallout had already started. Reporters were gathering on the courthouse steps. Headlines were popping up everywhere. Kody Brown secretly cuts wives out of family trust. Garrison's final letter exposes father's financial betrayal. But for the family, none of that noise mattered as much as one quiet instruction from a son who wasn't there anymore: open the blue box. Early the next morning, under a soft winter sun, Christine stood in front of the dusty storage unit in Flagstaff. She still had the lease in her name, and the key was right there in her hand. They hadn't touched that storage unit since the early days of the show, back when the family still felt like one big, if complicated, team. Back when they'd pack away Christmas lights and letter decorations together, fold up baby clothes side by side, and somehow believe a split-level compound in Arizona could contain all their hopes and hurts. Christine stood there now, key in one hand, flashlight in the other. The early morning light was soft, but her breath came out sharp and quick. She slid the key into the rusty lock, turned it, and heard that familiar snap. Then she rolled the door up. It rattled like it hadn't moved in years. Dust danced in the beam of her flashlight as she stepped inside. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Labels faded but still readable. Christmas 2014, Dayton's school stuff, Robyn's jewelry supplies, Mary's kitchen, Gabe's baby clothes. And then, tucked under a broken artificial Christmas tree and a sun-bleached sleeping bag, she saw it. A plain blue plastic box. No label. Just sitting there, waiting. Her heart sank a little. She reached down, fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing her boy had placed this here on purpose. He'd known exactly what it could do. Christine lowered herself to the cold concrete floor, right there among the memories, and gently lifted the lid. Inside were just two things: a worn brown envelope and an old black camcorder. She hesitated for a second, then opened the envelope first. Photocopies of trust documents spilled out, but these weren't ordinary copies. Garrison had gone through them carefully, highlighting every change Kody made, every spot where equal split was crossed out, every new line that funneled everything, 100% to Robyn's legal children. And on the bottom of one page, in Garrison's own handwriting, this is what destroyed him. This is what made him lie. Christine's chest tightened. She wiped away the tears that had started falling and reached for the camcorder. It was old, but Garrison had charged it recently. The battery icon glowed full. She pressed play, and there he was. Her son, sitting in what looked like his room, speaking straight to the camera. Robyn helped him file the papers. He said quietly, "I saw her at the bank. She told the guy she was a legal co-owner. She signed something. I couldn't see exactly what, but it was right after the big fight with Janelle, right after Mom said she wanted out." The video shook a little as he adjusted the camera, but his voice stayed steady. Christine hit pause. Her hands were shaking now. This wasn't just Kody acting alone anymore. Robyn hadn't just benefited. She'd been right there, helping make it happen. Christine rewound it and played that part again, just to be sure. She told the guy she was a legal co-owner. She signed something. Then the video faded to one final shot. Garrison holding up a slip of paper with an account number and a password written on it. Christine read it twice. She didn't fully understand what it unlocked yet, but she snapped a quick photo with her phone, turned off the camcorder, closed the box, and headed straight back to the courthouse. By the time she got there, things were already heating up. Kody's legal team was fighting hard to keep the camcorder footage out, calling it inflammatory, unverified, too prejudicial. Christine walked in, still dusty from the storage unit, holding that camcorder like it was the most important thing in the world. "I have the box," she said simply. The judge looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "Approach the bench." She did. She set the camcorder on the evidence table and handed over the annotated documents from the envelope. The judge called a recess so they could review everything privately. Out in the hallway, Mary pulled Christine gently to the side. "You okay?" she asked softly. Christine nodded, slow and tired. "He left us everything. Every single piece." Mary leaned in closer and whispered, "I hope it breaks them." When court came back in session, the judge looked more serious than ever. He'd clearly been through it all. "We have reviewed the contents of the blue box," he said. "The court finds them relevant and admissible." Robyn let out a sharp gasp. The judge turned directly to her. "Mrs. Brown, in the footage recorded by Garrison, you are seen entering a bank and participating in the filing of trust updates. Do you wish to respond before this footage is played for the court?" Robyn blinked fast, like she was trying to clear something from her eyes that wouldn't go away. "I didn't know what I was signing," she said, voice small and shaky. "Kody just told me it was." She stopped, the words dying in her throat. Christine didn't let the silence linger. "She was there," Christine said firmly. "She knew." She signed. The judge gave a quiet nod to the technician. He picked up the camcorder and started the playback. The screen flickered to life. And there was Garrison again. Calm, clear, speaking straight to the lens. His voice filled the courtroom once more. Robyn pressed her hands over her face, shoulders folding in like she could disappear if she tried hard enough. Every word from that young man landed softer than a shout, but oh, they hit harder than any yelling ever could. Truth has a way of doing that. It doesn't need volume to break a person wide open. Kody couldn't sit still. He shifted, then shifted again. Eyes glued to the floor now, like if he didn't look up, none of this would be real. Then, out of nowhere, he stood. "Turn it off," he said, low and tight. No one moved. I said, "Turn it off." The video kept rolling. Garrison's voice came through one last time. "You can lie to the world, Dad, but you couldn't lie to me. Not forever." That's when Kody cracked. He brought his fist down on the table with a bang that made everyone jump. This is a setup. The whole thing is twisted. He was angry, he was unwell. The judge's voice cut through like a knife. "Mr. Brown, sit down right now, or I'll have you removed from this courtroom." Kody sank back into his chair, chest rising and falling hard, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen him. Christine stood quietly and held up her phone so the screen faced the bench. "I just had my lawyer check this," she said, steady as could be. "It's the account number and password from Garrison's video. It links to a private holding account in Utah." She turned toward Robyn. "And the only one with access? It's you." Robyn's head snapped up, eyes huge. Christine went on, gentle but firm. "You've been hiding more than $400,000 in diverted trust funds. And now, the court knows it." The judge looked from one to the other, long and hard, then leaned forward. "I'm ordering a full forensic financial audit, effective immediately." Robyn didn't come back to court right after that. The moment the judge said the word audit, she slipped out a side door, head down, lawyer holding her arm, hands covering her face. No one went after her this time. No one even watched her go. And maybe, for the first time in years, no one really cared. Inside the courtroom, Christine, Janelle, and Mary sat close, shoulder to shoulder. They'd been pulled apart before, stretched thin, almost torn for good. But Garrison, in a way Kody never managed while he was alive, had brought them back together. Now it was Mary's turn. The bailiff asked if she needed a minute before taking the stand. She just said no, stood up straight, walked forward, swore her oath, and faced the judge. "Miss Brown," He began kindly. You were part of the family during the time these trust updates happened. Do you remember ever signing anything that removed you or your children as beneficiaries? Mary took a slow breath. No, sir. I was told everything stayed equal. The judge nodded. Who told you that? She turned and looked right at Kody. He did. Kody shifted again, uncomfortable in his seat. And did he ever show you the revised trust? No. Did you ever ask to see it? I asked once, she said quietly. He told me it wasn't necessary. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone knew how long Mary had kept quiet, how much she'd carried without complaint. And now she wasn't holding back. Did you believe him? The judge asked. Mary paused, just for a heartbeat. I wanted to, she whispered. Janelle reached over and brushed a tear from her own cheek. Christine laid a gentle hand on Mary's arm. Then Mary added something more. There were things I wasn't allowed to see. Papers Robyn handled. Signatures that didn't look quite right. I remember once seeing Robyn at the kitchen table with manila folders marked Coyote Pass. When I asked what they were, she said, just legal housekeeping. A murmur rippled through the room. The judge leaned in. And you believed her? Mary nodded slowly. I trusted her. I shouldn't have. You could feel the weight of 20 years in her voice, all the time she'd swallowed her questions, all the silence she'd kept, finally spilling out. Miss Brown, the judge said carefully, were you ever shown the current list of trust beneficiaries? She shook her head. The judge picked up a document, one of the ones from Garrison's envelope in the storage unit. This lists only 5 names, he said. Aurora, Brianna, Dayton, Solomon, and Ariella. Are these your children? No, Mary whispered. They're not. Are any of your descendants included on that list? The judge asked. No. Mary answered softly. Did you approve this change? No. Did Mr. Brown ever ask for your consent? Mary's voice cracked right down the middle. No, Your Honor. Over on the other side of the room, Kody's lawyer was leaning in close, talking fast and low. But Kody didn't seem to hear a word. He just kept staring at the floor, like he already knew how this story was going to end. Then the judge laid the next card on the table. I've just received preliminary findings from the court-appointed forensic auditor, he said, holding up a fresh printout. There are 2 previously undisclosed accounts, one in Utah, one offshore. Robyn's lawyer shot to his feet. Objection. Your Honor, this is preliminary. We haven't had time to review. Overruled, the judge said, sharp but calm. The amounts are real. The documents are traceable. He turned toward Robyn, who had slipped back into the courtroom, pale as paper and shaking. Mrs. Brown, you are listed as the primary contact on the offshore account ending in 7742. Do you deny this? Her lips trembled. I didn't handle it alone. Who did? The judge asked. She glanced at Kody, then back at the judge. I signed what he told me to sign. That's all. Christine stood up slowly. That's not true, she said, voice steady. You were at the meetings. Garrison saw you. He recorded you helping file the papers. Robyn's head snapped up. He hated me, she shouted, tears spilling over. He blamed me for everything. He saw you. Christine shot back, not raising her voice but firm as stone. He recorded the truth. This wasn't just about money anymore. It had turned into something rawer. Years of hurt, secrets, and broken trust all crashing together in one room. The judge raised a hand for quiet. This court will decide any criminal responsibility in due time. Right now, I need clear answers. He looked straight at Robyn again. Did you know that by signing those documents, you were excluding Mary, Janelle, and Christine's children from the trust? Robyn hesitated. Her eyes filled, but she gave the smallest nod. Barely there, but enough. Christine whispered, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. That's all we needed. The judge turned to the clerk. I'm issuing a full subpoena for all communications between the Browns and the trust administrators over the past 4 years, emails, memos, internal notes. He tapped the camcorder sitting on the evidence table. And this recording will be central to the case. Kody stood up again, face red. You want the truth? He snapped. Fine. Everyone turned toward him. You want the truth? He repeated, louder this time. I didn't do this to hurt anyone. I did it to protect what was left. You all walked away. Christine divorced me. Janelle gave up on the family vision. Mary checked out years ago. He pointed at Robyn. She was the only one who stayed. Janelle's voice cut through. You rewrote our family's legacy. You sold us out. Christine added quietly, I gave everything I had. Mary, tears streaming now, said, and I stayed quiet too long. Robyn, sobbing softly, whispered, he told me we had no choice. The judge stood up, his voice booming. Enough. The room went dead silent. I am placing a temporary freeze on all accounts connected to the Brown Family Trust. No withdrawals, no transfers. Effective immediately. He looked to the bailiff. And Mrs. Robyn Brown is to remain under court supervision until we determine the full extent of her involvement. Christine gasped. Robyn broke down completely, folding in on herself. Kody stepped forward. You can't do that. She's the mother of my children. The judge looked him square in the eye. You should have thought about that before hiding $400,000 in secret accounts. This wasn't a family squaring things up anymore. It was a courtroom, plain and simple, a battlefield of paperwork and broken promises. But the judge wasn't quite finished. He reached for one last item on his desk, a document Garrison had signed just 2 months before he passed. We hadn't seen this one yet. And it wasn't another letter. It was a legal motion, a formal challenge filed directly against his own father. The room froze solid. No one breathed when the judge said it. Kody's mouth actually fell open. Robyn clutched at her chest like the ground had vanished beneath her. A motion, filed by Garrison himself months before he died. A direct legal strike at the heart of everything his father had built. The judge held the paper carefully in both hands, like it carried more weight than all the others combined. This document, the judge began, holding it steady for everyone to see, was notarized, filed through private counsel, and mailed to this court under seal. It is a formal motion requesting the removal of Kody Brown as legal trustee of the Brown Family Trust. He paused, letting that sink in. The reasons cited are serious: breach of fiduciary duty, concealment of changes to beneficiaries, and deliberate financial exclusion of legal stakeholders. He glanced over the top of his glasses. Signed, Garrison James Brown. Christine's eyes filled with tears again. But this time, they weren't just from sorrow. There was pride there, deep and fierce. A mother seeing her son stand tall, even when he wasn't in the room anymore. Mary whispered, almost to herself, he did it. Janelle sat perfectly still, lips pressed tight together, like she was holding back a lifetime of words, unsure if they'd come out as a cry or a roar. Robyn shook her head hard, back and forth. No. He never hated you that much. He wouldn't have done this. Kody didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, pale and quiet. The big, confident man he used to play on TV, now looking like a hollowed-out version of himself. The judge went on, calm and clear. Under state law, this court is required to review any valid motion about trust administration when it comes from a legal heir or beneficiary. Garrison, as an adult child and stakeholder, certainly qualified. Kody finally found his voice. He's gone, he said, almost pleading. He's not here to explain this. Christine was on her feet in an instant. He explained it, she said, voice strong. In the videos, in the letters, in every careful detail he left behind. What more do you want from him? He was angry. Kody shot back, louder now. He didn't see the whole picture. The judge brought the gavel down once, sharp and final. That's enough. Because this wasn't about old family arguments anymore. This was about law, responsibility, wrongdoing. And one young man's quiet, determined last stand against the father who tried to erase him and his siblings from their own future. The judge turned the page and started reading directly from the motion. Mr. Brown states that he personally witnessed the shredding, and later burning, of early trust documents in the family garage. He says Robyn Brown was present during a weekend when other family members were out of town. Christine whipped around. He what? Janelle straightened up slowly. That weekend, I went to Vegas with the kids. They told me they were just doing some spring cleaning. Mary's voice came out cold and steady. He burned it all. The judge kept reading. The motion includes sworn testimony, photographs of partially burned trust pages, and notarized letters from a former attorney. He paused for a moment, then added, it also attaches an email from a bank manager confirming that trust amendment paperwork was rushed through, bypassing normal reviews, and authorized under Robyn Brown's signature. Robyn's legs gave way a little. Her lawyer reached out to steady her. I didn't know what it really meant, she muttered, voice breaking. He told me it was just tax stuff. Simplifying things. Christine didn't let that slide. Then why didn't you tell any of us? Because he said not to. In that moment, Robyn wasn't the loyal last wife standing anymore. She was a witness. Maybe a participant. And possibly facing real consequences of her own. The judge handed the motion to the clerk. This motion is valid, he said clearly. I am officially opening proceedings to determine whether Mr. Kody Brown should be removed as trustee. Effective immediately, pending full investigation. Kody stood and slammed both hands on the table. This is insane. This is my family. This is my legacy. Mary rose to her feet, quiet but firm. No, this is what you stole from us. The judge nodded to the bailiff. Please escort Mr. Brown from the courtroom until further notice. The bailiff stepped forward. Kody's face twisted. You're throwing me out of my own trust hearing? The judge didn't blink. You've been accused of fraud. Until this is resolved, you are no longer permitted to participate in or manage any family assets. Kody turned desperately to Robyn. Say something, please. She didn't. Not a single word. Because everything she'd already said, or hadn't said, was going to be picked apart in this room for a long time to come. The bailiff put a gentle hand on Kody's shoulder. He shrugged it off, but he walked out anyway, slow, heavy steps, like he was pulling the weight of everything he'd built behind him as it all came crashing down. The door closed with a solid thud. The whole room seemed to let out a breath it had been holding for years. The judge looked back to Christine, Janelle, Mary, to the women still sitting there, side by side. And then he continued. This court will reconvene in 48 hours, the judge said, his voice carrying that quiet authority that made everyone listen. We will review all submitted evidence, the contents of the blue box, the camcorder footage, the financial records, and the prior emails. He looked toward Janelle. Miss Brown, please be prepared to testify about property rights and the original trust agreements. Then to Mary, your testimony regarding access to information and the concealment of it will be formally entered into the record. Finally, his eyes settled on Christine. You will submit the full contents of the blue box, including any digital files, for expert analysis. All three women nodded, slow and solemn. They'd come too far to do anything else. The judge stood, ready to leave, but he paused at the door and turned back. What he said next caught everyone off guard. This is the most complex family trust abuse case I've ever presided over, and believe me, I've seen some real monsters. But what makes this one different, what makes it more dangerous than most, is that it was all done under the illusion of unity. A big, happy family. He shook his head just slightly. That kind of cover hides a lot of damage. Then he was gone, and the room fell into a heavy silence. Christine leaned over and rested her head against Mary's shoulder for a moment. Do you think we'll win? She asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, the screen faded to black, and one last line appeared in Garrison's handwriting. I left a backup. Just in case. Utah safety box, locker 119B. Janelle stared at it, hardly breathing. That's the old storage vault, behind his first apartment, she whispered. He never let anyone near that place. Christine's eyes narrowed. What else did he leave us? Because if there was one thing they were all starting to understand, it was that Garrison hadn't just exposed the betrayal. He'd planned for every possibility. He'd prepared for the long fight. A couple of days later, Christine stood in the chilly parking lot of a Salt Lake City storage facility, turning a rusted old key over in her hand. It had been tucked away in Garrison's things for over a year. She hadn't mentioned it to the court yet, not officially. But something deep down, that mother's instinct you can't ignore, told her this wasn't just a backup. This felt like the final piece. Locker 119B. The one Garrison had mentioned in that quiet aside on the camcorder. The vault he'd rented in his own name, paid for himself, and kept completely private, even from Janelle. The manager didn't ask questions. The name on file matched, the key worked, and no one had touched the unit since the summer before. Christine rolled the door up slowly. Inside, it was clean and organized, just one metal shelf, and right in the center sat a single fireproof black case. Taped to the top was a note in Garrison's familiar handwriting. If they're still lying, open this. She froze for a second. Those words hit like a punch to the chest. Because they weren't just meant for her. They were for all of them. For every wife who trusted Kody. For every kid who'd been written out. Christine took the case and drove straight to the courthouse. No phone calls ahead. She just walked in carrying it like it was the most precious thing she'd ever held. Judge Rawlings was already in his chambers. Within the hour, he had the courtroom opened again. Word travels fast. The gallery filled up quickly. Mary and Janelle had driven up from Arizona that morning. Robyn sat off in a corner, quiet now, surrounded by her legal team. Kody was still barred from the room. But what Christine carried in her hands? Nobody could look away from that. It wasn't just another bombshell. It felt like a complete blueprint. One Garrison had drawn line by careful line. The judge stood as she approached the bench. "Miss Brown," he said calmly, "you believe the contents of this case will aid the court?" "I do," Christine answered without hesitation. He nodded once. "Then you may proceed." She set the black case on the evidence table and unlocked it. Inside were three things: a thick-bound folder, a second flash drive, and a sealed letter addressed directly to the judge, dated 2 months before Garrison passed. The judge opened the folder first. His eyebrows lifted almost right away. "This is," he started. Then stopped himself. He looked over to the clerk. "Enter this entire case under seal and prepare digital copies immediately." Christine handed him the flash drive next. And finally, the letter. He read it silently for a few moments, lips moving just slightly as he took it in. Then, he began reading aloud for the record. "If you're reading this, they're still pretending everything's fine. Which means you need the full proof. This is everything." He turned the page. Inside that folder weren't just more financial records. They were internal emails, printed out, dated, from a private server. Emails between Kody, Robyn, and an estate planner going all the way back to 2017. Somehow, maybe through an old shared login, a forgotten device, or files he'd quietly saved, Garrison had pieced together the parts no one else had thought to look for. He'd collected the real story, step by step, over years. The emails went back years, cold, calculated words that turned everything the family had shared into something planned and hidden. In one message from Kody, "We need the asset transfer completed before the show ends. I don't want Mary asking about her equity when she walks." In another, Robyn's reply, "We'll need to file a grant deed on the quiet. Can we say it's for tax reasons if the other wives ask?" This wasn't just a betrayal that happened in the heat of the moment. It was a strategy, laid out in black and white, step by careful step. The judge's voice grew a little tighter with every line he read. These messages show clear intent to conceal, exclude, and redirect shared property, without the knowledge or consent of all legal stakeholders. Mary stood up slowly. 2017? She asked, her voice carrying through the quiet room. "That's the year I asked to move into my own rental." Christine whispered, almost to herself, "That's when it all started." Robyn kept her eyes on the floor. She had nothing left to say. Janelle broke the heavy silence. "So this was the plan, all along." The judge looked at her kindly, then lifted one final page from the folder. "There's more." It was a notarized copy of a shell company registration, Juniper Equity Holdings. Owner, Robyn Sullivan Brown. Registered in Nevada. And that same company? It now held the deeds to Coyote Pass. Christine's knees went weak. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Oh my God, Juniper. That's the name I saw in the mailbox, the one tucked behind the storage shed. Mary stared across the room at Robyn. You lied to our faces. Over and over. Robyn's lawyer stood quickly. My client denies knowing the full scope of what was being filed. The judge cut in sharply. Your client owned the company, and Kody Brown used her name to retitle the land. Robyn's voice cracked. I didn't read all of it, but it was too late. Garrison had made sure every word, every line would be seen exactly as it was written. Judge Rawlings turned to the clerk, motioned to freeze all assets under Juniper Equity Holdings, effective immediately, pending civil litigation and possible criminal referral. Then he looked at Christine. You mentioned a second flash drive. She nodded, handing it over with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He plugged it in. One file. A video. Christine stepped back, fingers gripping the table as the screen came to life. There was Garrison again, but this time he wasn't calm and measured. He was angry, voice thick with it. This is the part I couldn't say before, he told the camera, leaning in closer. Because it's not just about the money. He paused, eyes fierce. There's something else. Christine felt her chest tighten. Garrison went on, voice trembling now. It's about a signature. Mom, check the sale deed from 2021. The one they told you signed. Janelle's head snapped toward the screen. Check the ink, Garrison said. Pause it if you have to. Check the ink. I saw the real one. You didn't sign it, Mom. Someone forged it. The courtroom went absolutely still. Christine's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The judge froze, hand halfway to his gavel. Janelle slowly sat down. What? Robyn shot to her feet. No, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Christine turned toward her, voice low but steady. You forged her signature. I never. Robyn started, then stumbled. Kody said it was fine. He said. The judge raised a hand. Enough. He looked to the clerk, calm but firm. Get me a forensic document analyst here immediately. Because now it wasn't just financial games or hidden accounts. This was criminal forgery. Land fraud. And Robyn sat right in the middle of it. The judge fixed his gaze on her. Until this is fully reviewed, you are forbidden from making any property decisions, banking withdrawals, or filing any documents. Robyn collapsed back into her chair, looking suddenly very small. Christine turned to the frozen screen, Garrison's face still there, like he was watching it all unfold, making sure the truth finally had its day. He hadn't just written letters. He'd built a case. Solid, careful, airtight. The room had never known a silence quite like this. Not when the first letter was read. Not even when Kody was escorted out. This silence felt almost sacred. Because what Christine held now wasn't more evidence or another recording. It was something deeply human. A plain envelope, handwritten, addressed to one person only. Mom. She'd found it tucked inside the flap of the fireproof case, hidden behind the flash drive. It wasn't marked for the court or the lawyers. It was private. Personal. But Janelle had asked for it to be read aloud anyway. She'd said, voice soft but sure, Garrison didn't leave his truth just for me. He left it for all of us. Christine walked slowly to the bench, fingers trembling as she handed the envelope to the judge. He didn't hesitate. The judge accepted the envelope without a word. He simply nodded, opened it carefully, and began to read aloud in that steady, respectful voice he'd kept through all the chaos. Dear Mom, I didn't know how to say any of this to your face without breaking down. And I didn't want to cry in front of you. I wanted you to see me strong, because you were always the strongest one in the room. Janelle's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over instantly, quiet but unstoppable. Christine reached over and rested a gentle hand on her back, steadying her the way old friends do when words just aren't enough. I saw what they did to you, the judge continued, reading Garrison's words. I watched you give up everything to keep the peace. I watched you swallow lie after lie because you loved us too much to set the whole thing on fire. No one in that courtroom moved. Not Robyn, not Mary, not the bailiffs or the reporters in the back. Even the judge seemed to feel the weight of it. But you didn't deserve what he did, what they planned. I saw the files. I saw the deeds. I saw your name scratched off property that should have been yours. Janelle let out a choked sob, soft but deep, like something she'd held in for years finally broke free. I wanted to tell you that day. The letter went on. I wanted to scream it. But you looked so tired, Mom. And I knew if I told you then, it would have shattered you completely. Christine's own tears started falling now, silent tracks down her cheeks. So I waited. I saved everything. Because I knew one day you'd walk into that courtroom, and I wanted you to walk in strong, with the truth right there beside you. The judge's voice caught, just for a second. You didn't lose. You didn't fail. You were just never given a fair fight. He paused, letting the words settle. Then the final lines. Tell Savannah I love her. Tell Gabriel I'm proud of him. And tell Dad, if he ever really listens, that I wasn't trying to ruin him. I was just trying to save what was left of us. The judge folded the letter slowly, carefully, like it was something fragile and sacred. For a long moment, even the court reporter's fingers stopped moving over the keys. Janelle didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her son had said it all. Every mother in that room felt it. Christine, Mary, even Robyn in her quiet corner. Christine whispered, voice cracking. He carried all of that, alone. Garrison's words hadn't just uncovered fraud. They'd laid bare the grief underneath it all. And grief, real grief, is about the most honest thing there is. The judge stood. This court acknowledges the final letter and honors the plaintiff's request to enter it as emotional testimony. Then he turned to the clerk. Resume proceedings. We have one final motion to review. Christine stepped forward again, steady now, and placed one last document in the judge's hands, the one that had been tucked under the old camcorder tapes, almost missed. It was a typed legal form, signed, dated, witnessed, and filed by Garrison with a private attorney months before he passed. The judge looked it over, then looked up, clearly stunned. This is a posthumous civil action, he said quietly. Filed on behalf of Garrison James Brown against Kody Brown and Robyn Sullivan Brown. Christine nodded. Yes. He read further. The suit alleges trust fraud, concealment, embezzlement, property misrepresentation, and fraudulent reassignment of real estate assets. He glanced up again. This was filed while Garrison was still alive. Christine's voice was calm but firm. He filed it himself. Then he had it sealed, with instructions to unseal only if Robyn or Kody denied knowledge of the trust manipulation. She looked toward Robyn, and they both did. The judge murmured something under his breath, then turned to Robyn. Do you wish to revise your previous testimony? You've maintained that you signed documents but didn't fully understand them. You've denied active knowledge of shell companies, Juniper Holdings, or forged signatures. Robyn looked down at her hands. I don't know anymore. The judge leaned back. Then this court will proceed with the formal civil action under Garrison's motion. A beat of heavy silence. Then the courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned. Kody stood there, eyes red, face drawn, looking like the fight had gone out of him hours ago. I want to speak, he said, voice hollow. The judge raised an eyebrow. You were removed from these proceedings. I know. Christine turned slowly. You're not supposed to be here. I know, Kody said again. But he stepped inside anyway. And then he said the words no one in that room was ready for. I forged Janelle's signature. The judge blinked. Excuse me? Kody nodded, slow and heavy. She was out of town. The bank needed it fast. Robyn said it was the only way to keep things moving. I thought I could fix it later. Mary stood up, voice shaking with disbelief. You forged legal property documents? I did it for the family, Kody said weakly. Christine's voice rose, sharp and raw. For which family? He looked around the room, then finally at Janelle. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything. Janelle didn't answer. She just sat there, tears still falling, staring at the man she'd built a life with. The judge's voice came low and stern, cutting through the stunned air. Mr. Brown, you've just confessed, on record, to felony forgery. Mr. Brown, the judge said, his tone like steel wrapped in velvet, you have just confessed, on the record, in open court, to felony-level document fraud. I know, Kody replied, voice barely above a whisper. He lowered himself into a chair as if his legs had finally given up the fight. He looked suddenly older, smaller, like a man who'd been carrying a heavy load for years and just let it drop. The courtroom didn't explode. There were no gasps, no outbursts. Because deep down, this wasn't a shock. It was just the final piece clicking into place, the confirmation everyone had been waiting for, even if they hadn't wanted to believe it. Christine turned slowly to Mary and Janelle, her eyes wide but steady. He finally said it, she whispered. And then the judge spoke again, and his words sent a chill straight through the room. Let the record reflect that, based on this testimony and the overwhelming evidence provided through Garrison's motions and the materials from the vault, he paused, letting the weight settle. Criminal referrals are now being submitted to the district attorney's office. Robyn clutched at her stomach like she'd been punched. Kody simply closed his eyes, head bowed. Mary leaned toward the others and whispered, so soft only they could hear, "It's over." But it wasn't. Not quite yet. A court officer stepped forward quietly and handed the judge a sealed envelope. He opened it, scanned the contents, then stood taller. I have just received an emergency response from the district attorney's office, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner. He looked directly across the room. Kody Brown. Robyn Sullivan Brown. They lifted their heads slowly, like they already knew what was coming. You are now officially under state investigation for felony fraud and financial misconduct related to the Brown Family Trust. Christine let out a sharp gasp, hand flying to her chest. Robyn made a soft, broken sound, half scream, half sob. Kody didn't move at all. He just sat there, staring at nothing. Because he knew. He finally understood. The son he'd underestimated, the quiet one who'd watched and waited, had brought the whole carefully built empire crashing down. The final day of the hearings arrived under a winter storm. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps, cameras flashing like lightning in the gray morning light. Headlines scrolled across every screen and phone. Kody and Robyn Brown under fraud investigation. Son's posthumous evidence exposes family trust betrayal. But inside the courtroom, it wasn't chaos. It was something heavier. A deep, suffocating calm that settles in when the truth has finally clawed its way into the open and there's nowhere left to hide. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Everyone sat. Then silence. Kody Brown. Robyn Sullivan Brown, the judge began, his voice steady and firm. After thorough review of all submitted evidence, including the notarized letters, audio recordings, video documentation, forensic financial analysis, and the materials discovered in the sealed vault, this court finds overwhelming grounds to refer this matter for full criminal prosecution. He paused, letting the words land. Additionally, all assets currently frozen under the Brown Family Trust and associated holdings, including Coyote Pass and Juniper Equity Holdings, will remain under court supervision pending resolution of both civil and criminal proceedings. Christine reached for Janelle's hand. Janelle reached for Mary's. The three of them sat there, side by side, fingers linked, no words needed. The civil claims brought forward in the posthumous action filed by Garrison James Brown, the judge continued, are hereby granted standing. Restitution and equitable redistribution will be determined in subsequent hearings. He looked out over the room one last time. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down, once, clean and final. Outside, the storm kept raging. But inside, for the first time in years, the air felt clear. Garrison hadn't just exposed the lies. He'd made sure the truth had the last word. And now, finally, it did.